So pumped, can't wait for people to hear this stuff.
Trent Keirnan, A-Playing Director of the Azure Property Group.
Mate, want to talk a little bit today about, I guess, your story, your journey, from the
All
outside.
the dirty secrets. I felt like the detonator had gone off. I wasn't living authentically. I realised that it's 100% rooted in a sense of worthlessness.
He's won 28 industry awards, with over $1.3 billion in his current pipeline, a self-made success story, a dedicated inner worker, and a testament to living true to one's vision and values. Listen as we lift the veil on what really goes on inside the head and heart of a true A player.
All the gear, no idea. I wouldn't necessarily make the smartest decisions. If I look at where I am today compared to where I was, I go, what the hell was that? If you really surrender to the process, it's amazing how quick alignment comes. I don't need any more here.
Yeah.
My cup is full.
Yes.
Right in this moment, my
Yes.
cup is full.
And so what's the future look like for yourself and for the business? And
Very aggressive revenue targets. None of that scares me
wow.
because I'm not operating from a place of fear.
Hello, how are you?
Is that like you first? Yeah, good to see you. Great.
Thank you.
So pumped, can't wait for people to hear this stuff.
So we're walking in now.
So, sitting nice and tall, shoulders back, closing down the eyes if you feel safe to. Permission just to be in the space, nothing else to do, nowhere else to be. Connecting with our intention. And when you're ready, coming back to the room.
Amazing. Let's just sit here and keep doing that.
Mate, it's good to have you here.
Wow, mate, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Great.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. I guess wanting to talk a little bit about our Awakened A players, obviously you being one of them.
Wow.
In your beautiful space here.
Yeah, it's great to have you in this space.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be out of the office. Mate, want to talk a little bit today about, I guess, your story, your journey.
Yep.
Where you were at when you first came to us, what, I guess, transformation has been,
Yep.
where you've come, and what the future looks like. What are the things that people in your life or people that may, look up to you or know you, what are the things that they wouldn't see or wouldn't know, from the
All
outside?
the dirty secrets.
Well, not necessarily dirty secrets, but the parts that you make look easy that perhaps might not be behind the
Sure.
scenes.
Yeah.
The parts that people would go, I can't believe Trent would ever have that.
Yeah, sure.
Because obviously
Yeah.
incredibly successful guy, super kind, humble, generous, kind man. And I guess as we lead in, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what we're doing in this space here.
Sure. So I'm a passionate property developer.
Yep.
That's my day job.
Yeah.
Father of two. Very proud father of two. My daughter's 22. She lives in New York. She lives in America.
Yep.
She studied over there. My son's 17, going into his final year of school. And like to think that it gets easier as they get older, but I think the challenges just differ.
Yeah, sure.
I bought my first property when I was 17.
Yep.
I was a good student, and you either became a doctor or a lawyer.
Yep.
And I hate the sight of blood. So it was like, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I was infatuated with the LA law and the pinstripe suit, and
Yep.
thought, this is going to be great. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So I went and studied law with a double major in political science, which was a separate
Mhm.
part of my degree,
Mhm.
and then got 3 years in
Mhm.
and basically dropped out.
Okay.
And it was quite interesting because I went to a Catholic school on the south side of Brisbane. I was born in Townsville, so grew up in North Queensland.
Yep.
And mum and dad moved to Brisbane for a few different reasons, but predominantly they felt schooling and was better opportunities for me.
Sure.
I'm an only child. Don't hold that against me. Mum and dad would have loved to have had more children, but they couldn't have any more after me. So it was a tough thing. But I grew up in a family where mum and dad, our house was like the place where everyone came. Mum and dad are very hospitable people. They both come from, hotels and motels and a hospital sort of background.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always the sort of the hub where, even though I didn't have any siblings, I never felt like I missed out because we always had, all my closest friends and everyone used to come and family would come to our house. So,
Sure.
So I went through high school, as I say, started law, dropped out in my third year because I had met my then partner, who we obviously then got married.
Yep.
And I realised very early on in my study that I was actually doing law not because I was passionate at law, but because that was what you did. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, obviously did well at school. So it was either become a doctor or a lawyer. And I was romanced by the notion of the pinstripe suit and the big corner office in the city.
Yeah. So what's your head telling you in that when you're saying, I've got, romanced by the idea of the suit in the corner office? What's your mind making that mean?
Well, your mind says that, you've got to do those things because that will make you successful, and then you'll feel really good, and this will make you you'll be this. It was the early embryonic stages of I'm chasing external success, because if I get this external success, I'm going to be happy and the world's going to be amazing. So I chase that pretty hard. Like I chase things, everything I do in life, I tend to do like 1,000 miles an hour.
Yes.
And it was quite interesting because I was never passionate about the law. It taught me some really good discipline. When I was studying the political science, I actually really enjoyed that. And then I thought a bit about politics for a while, and then my parents were like, "Oh, you can't do that, mate. There's no way. There's no life in that." The success was driven by, monetary gain, the ability to be able to be independent, provide for my family, all of those things. Very much those principles instilled in me by my mum and dad. Thankfully, through the journey of inner work, I'm able to kind of identify where that comes from them because of their backgrounds and their childhoods as well. So yeah, it was quite interesting. Fell into property development, started with my first block of land. I bought a block of land, sold it, I think it was like 8 weeks later for 30,000 more than I bought it. And I thought, how long has this been going on? To be a first year lawyer, I had to have all the gear. I had no idea. And I needed to, and I was going to be earning $32,000 a year. So I actually, I realized then that I had a little bit of a passion for being an entrepreneur, and I fell into property and I fell into design really through just experience, and then realized that I've been very, very fortunate that I do something that I'm so passionate about. I'm lucky that my career is absolutely 100% my passion.
Yes.
And I think I think I would have probably burnt myself to the ground more than I did if I hadn't have at least been doing something that I was passionate about.
Absolutely. So I know you are super passionate about design. I mean, I just walk into this place and you immediately get this feeling. I know it's something you talk about a lot.
Yeah.
I just walk in and go, oh, wow, this just feels so nice. It just feels so beautiful. How do you kind of live that design through your work these days? I know you've won multiple awards. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah. I mean, I think I do it very different today than I once did. I used to use what I did was I was passionate about creating joy for others, and I didn't really realize that at the time. I was very much, very rarely in the moment, but happy to experience and see the moment of joy experienced by others. Often that, bought properties that I would have developed or have gone to live in properties that I've developed over the years. So that's changed a lot now.
So where did that start from? Because I love that. You're saying you're doing things because you wanted to have joy for others. What was kind of like the root of that?
Through my inner work journey, I realized that it's 100% rooted in a sense of worthlessness. Obviously I was, all the gear, no idea. I was striving, but never really arriving. I knew that if I had all of the stuff and that I could create and, win awards and create financial success and have the biggest house and the best car and go on the great holidays and do all of those things, which are all okay in their own right, as long as they're coming from the right reason. And I was out running. I was out running for it rather than necessarily embracing it.
And so what did that feel like?
It's exhausting.
Okay.
It's really exhausting.
So on paper though, life would have looked incredible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You're doing really noteworthy stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got the house, the holidays, the family, the car, all the gear, but you feel exhausted.
Yeah, you felt exhausted. I felt a little bit fraudulent, to be honest.
Wow. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because not fraudulent necessarily to others, but really fraudulent to myself, because I felt very much on a merry-go-round where you would just each day it was like more. People would say, well, how much is enough?
Yep.
You know, and I would just say the definition of enough for me is more.
Yep.
So I would just be, it was just more, you know, and not necessarily in a, not in an arrogant way. It was just in the pace with which I embarked on everything.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily make the smartest decisions that came from a place of what's right for me.
Yeah.
I came from a place of what do I need to do?
Yeah.
So this whole, I need to do these things because if I actually get to doing these things, I'll actually be enough. And I lived that life for decades.
So what are some of those things? Because I know you've got some pretty crazy stories, like about the 2 a.m. wake ups for the personal trainer. And when you say like, I was just running and just doing all the things, like, give us some examples.
Yeah, I've got some crazy stories, which I tell some of my young staff today, and they just like, mate, you're crazy. And it's interesting because, you know, in the first instance, I've always been wired to work hard.
Yes.
So being a workaholic, that's my drug, right? So that's my addiction.
Yeah.
And so that could not be compromised. So, you know, in development, obviously you start early and you finish late.
Yep.
So anything else in my life had to fit around that.
Yep.
So, you know, my day would normally start at 5 a.m. In a work sense.
Yep.
And would finish at maybe 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And then I would often do paperwork well into the evening.
Yep.
I fell into a love of boxing. And became quite passionate about boxing. And so the way in which I was going to fit boxing into my life was to sleep less. So I used to have my trainer come to my house at 2 or 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, wow.
And, you know, and I would be, you know, some of my neighbours back then, I would wake up the neighbours carrying boxing bags up and down the street. We lived on a bit of a hill, and I'd be carrying them up and down the street, doing push-ups and all this crazy stuff. I had a 3-car garage, and we sort of set up a bit of a boxing ring in there. And so he used to come literally at 2:30 in the morning, 6 days a week.
And what are you telling yourself when you're doing that?
That this is just what you do.
This is what I have to do.
Absolutely. And because I actually really loved the boxing. So you just sleep less and this is great.
Yeah.
So I was up there, and then I would train until 4:30, and then have a shower, and then be working at 5.
And so your mind tells you, if I do this and I just keep fitting as much as I can into my life, I'm going to someday feel happy, content, satisfied.
All of that. But I think someday you're going to feel enough.
Yeah.
Someday all of a sudden you're going to get there.
Yeah.
It was really interesting when we first met. You asked me a little bit about what happiness looked like.
Yeah.
And I remember it so distinctively, and I kind of reflect with multitudes of emotions now. But I remember at the time, the space I was in, and I actually laughed. You probably don't remember, but I just laughed, and I said, mate, no one's ever really, happiness is not a thing.
I remember that.
You know,
I remember that. Yeah.
It's, you know, we're always striving to be happy, but happiness is not actually a destination. You're not actually ever really happy.
You're never actually going to be happy.
You don't get there.
We talk about it, but it's never going to actually happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the mindset, you know, and those little fleeting moments of, you know, if I was, I think some of the boxing was a derivative of, well, you know, you need to obviously look after your health. So I was working really hard, and obviously had a young family. My ex-wife, she had a lot of health problems, and that took its toll on the family.
Sure.
And so I think what comes as part of that process is a degree of control, and I could control my work environment.
Yeah.
You know, I never grew my business when I first started to be beyond something that I couldn't control. I couldn't micromanage every part of it, because if I was able to do that, I was able to then focus on ensuring that success was just hopefully around the corner. Even though my goal setting constantly moved, I never really set a goal and allowed myself to achieve the goal. It was like, oh, hang on, no. Well, that's really uncomfortable. To actually be able to spend time in some achievement or success, you can't do that. You just got to push the goal out further.
Move the goalpost. Okay.
And it was the same in the boxing until I got to a stage where I basically destroyed my body.
Yeah, wow.
And I would, you know, go and see the doctor and say, mate, can you give me injections in my shoulders, because I've got to get rid of the pain so I can keep boxing.
Yeah, wow.
So I did a really
pretty extreme.
Mate, it's you know, not something I'm necessarily in hindsight at all proud of, you know.
Yeah. But just it gives us an insight into that mindset.
Yeah.
I know you've also shared about in the past just like missing sleep purposely so you could work more.
Yeah, I did that for a few years. I thought, well, you know, it was interesting as I started to when I first started in business, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
and
wow.
then and everything to gain.
Yep.
And then until I can't use it anymore, until you're completely exhausted.
Yeah.
But I've also had a large degree of self-confidence where I'll back myself into doing things.
Yep.
And I got myself, as I started to have some success on the park in terms of my professional career, I started to chase bigger things and more things. And so I was like, well, hang on, how do I do everything I've currently got and do more?
Yeah.
What's the thing that you've got to sacrifice? And for me, it was sleep.
Yeah.
For a few years there, I would regularly work one night a week. I would work through the night and miss a night of sleep, and then get to a stage where at least I knew that I could achieve something that no one else was doing. So while everyone else was sleeping, I was working.
Wow.
And and I did that, and I found myself often coming into Christmas time, which was the only time I would allow myself to have a break, that I would always be in bed sick. So I'd have 2 or 3 weeks where I would just be completely destroyed.
Yep.
Often at the doctors, with multiple, issues of fatigue, basically.
Yep. Totally. And it speaks to that whole entrepreneurial kind of grind, hustle, push mindset. Yeah. And so if we bring that to when we first met in 2020, I just remember that was kind of one of the first things you're talking about, just being like, I'm just exhausted and I'm just so tired and my head's really loud, and on paper everything looks great. But there were some other kind of consequences showing up in your life that, you wanted to, I guess, work through and look at. Tell us a little bit about, where you were at, where the businesses were at, where life was at.
Yep. Interesting. It feels like a lifetime ago. I think the best way to describe it is I think I was imploding on the inside.
Wow.
So I felt like the detonator had gone off.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to control this.
Yep.
And again, that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, I had pretty well disintegrated a big chunk of my life insofar as I kind of lost myself. I was in fairly advanced throes of a pretty messy divorce, which was quite sad.
Yeah.
My kids were getting older. My daughter was coming into she just finished school and looking to study abroad.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden I'm like, I just remember there was these number of different things in my life where I've gone, I'm running out of time, and I haven't got the relationships I want to have, and I feel like hollow.
Wow.
I was running hard, but I was running out of puff. I felt it, probably didn't feel it, probably to be honest, but I could identify a big hole inside.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, something's not right here. This is not working for me anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
So I was pretty spent. Pretty spent.
And so at that stage, you'd gone from buying your first property on your own to now about 20 staff there.
Yeah. So
could you still control everything there?
Yeah. Look, it was interesting. So in 2014, I'd been doing some work previously over a number of years with a couple of guys who are now my business partners. So in 2014, we kind of joined together, and I was really worried about that because I've only ever worked for myself on my own, never had any partners. Didn't think I played that nicely in the sandpit. I've always used to making my own decisions all the time.
Yeah.
But had been through property cycles with these guys, and in hindsight, the best thing I've ever done because I trust them implicitly.
Yep.
Got a great relationship and built a great company. But it was quite interesting because what I realised is I wanted more professionally as well. But I realised that I was probably the thing that was holding my ability to have more back. At that stage, I think in meeting you, I think we had in the high teens, maybe almost 20 staff. Yeah, lots happened. So today I think we've 98 staff. So so it's been a very and a comfortable 98 for me. I never would have thought that I'd be in a position where I'd be comfortable to have a team and a business as substantial and as large with me not being able to control the same way as I used to.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And so talk to me about that hollow feeling because I really love that. And I think a lot of people will resonate, right? I'm just constantly trying to get the outsides right. And you've got them right and you had them right. But there was this kind of hollow feeling you described. What was that about? What was the root of it? What was, you know?
Yeah. Look, I think in the first instance, you say the hollowness is coming because of all of the things you can identify. Oh, I'm going through a divorce, so I'm going through the grief of that. My daughter's moving overseas.
Sure.
You know, my son's getting older. I'm getting older. You know,
Yes.
I'm starting to feel my mortality a little bit. I'm starting to go, oh, hang on, the body doesn't want to do what it used to do.
Sure.
You know,
Not skipping nights of sleep anymore.
Started to not being able to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then also started to go, I think, you know, we've talked about this feeling like I'm running out of time.
Yep.
This feeling like, oh, hang on, I've got this big hole because I'm not actually happy.
Yeah, wow.
So
Why was that?
Because I was not spending time on myself, not getting to know myself, I wasn't living authentically. And more importantly, I was disillusioned to my value set.
Yeah.
Proud to say that I've never been a dishonest person.
Yeah.
I've never been, you know, I've never done things that I think I've subliminally lived in accord with my values, but I haven't consciously lived in there.
Yeah.
And through our journey, it's obviously a complete revolutionary change, because for me, it's kind of my value set's what I wake up with every day.
Yeah.
And it's what I measure myself by, and I don't allow myself to be measured by other people anymore.
Amazing.
So that externalized.
That's a really big shift. If I sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
That's a really big shift. Like I think you nailed it before when you said it was like I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing for others with their happiness in mind. But then you're saying I'm getting here and it's like, okay, well, I'm going through a divorce, so that didn't end up where I wanted.
Yeah.
My daughter's moving overseas, so you know, I'm experiencing feelings about that. My son's getting older. Oh shit. You know, I'm getting up at 2:30 and finishing at, you know, sometimes midnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and doing this real kind of typical masculine provider role, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, no one's missing out on anything in any of that. Everyone's got, you know, a great life, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yet dad feels hollow.
Yeah.
You know,
Completely
and,
hollow.
And I've thought I was doing it for all of them.
And agitated and irritated and just not feeling good in yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like completely. If I even think a bit about what I would do in any recreational time, none of it would be what I currently now do.
Yeah.
So all of it would be, oh, well, you've got to go and check in with all of the people that you haven't had a chance to check in with, that actually at a deep level matter to you, but you can't manage it all. So the little bit of downtime, you've got to then make sure that you're checking in with those that really matter to ensure that the relationship has some elasticity, in the hope that one day you'll actually be this amazing person.
Wow.
But you're actually not really working towards that.
No.
So you're actually just thinking, if I've got all of the stuff and all the kids, and it's a whole lot of stories and reasons that you can create. And I'm a very good storyteller, like
Yes.
very, very good.
Yes.
And I can tell myself a story which will get me and drive me. But the abandonment of self that I experience and I fostered through those years actually just means that you're never really able to have the enrichedness of relationships and the dynamics of relationships, and also the enrichedness of a relationship with self, which was the one person that I knew probably least about.
Wow. So, mate, what were some of the kind of shifts or breakthrough moments, if you like? Like, what are the couple of the things that made you go, okay, we need to do things differently?
Oh, yeah.
What were they, and what are the results, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big ones is one of my best mate played professional football, and he used to always talk about the little guy on the shoulder, which is the fear of failure. And I always remember it from such a young age. That was he was the loud guy, right? So he was the guy on my shoulder. It was always the right side.
Yeah.
Because I'm right-handed. And I even remember when I played tennis or any sports, it was always that guy on the shoulder.
Yep.
And he's the guy that would always be saying, mate, you don't want to fail. Like, you cannot fail no matter what. So he's the guy that was getting me up at 2 a.m. He was the guy that was that was saying, mate, you don't need to sleep. Like, just go. Like,
Yeah.
you'll be right, you know?
Yeah.
So I was really very much driven by that fear of failure. And
Yep.
it was a cycle then.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, you realize that you're just in this treadmill of a cycle, which you're trying to outrun the fear of failing.
Mhm.
And ultimately we attract what we fear,
Yep.
in my experience. So for me, one of the big light bulb moments was actually hearing that person and acknowledging that loud
Yep.
noise,
Yeah.
and actually reframing that thought process into setting some goals that were sort of self-based goals that at the time felt completely self-indulgent, right?
Like what?
Oh, focusing on sleep.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Really getting my nutrition and my exercise and my health sorted.
Yeah. I remember you like almost struggling with that, being
Oh.
like, what, you mean I'm actually going to make time for myself and it's not going to be, outside of work hours? I'm like, mate, you got to work less.
Exactly.
And you're just going to have to take stuff off the plate and start saying no to things. And initially you were like, is this guy serious? Like, you looked at me like I was speaking Chinese. Like,
I remember going to my doctor and he said to me, mate, you're in adrenal fatigue.
Yep.
And if you keep doing this, you
Yeah.
will be either in hospital or dead.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, oh, and it was like coexisted with our sessions. And it was like, oh, well, maybe I've got to give this a whirl. And it was super uncomfortable. And then until it wasn't,
Yeah.
because I distinctively started to remember the shift of focus.
Yep.
I hadn't realized how thin I was in terms of the effectiveness of my focus during the course of a work week in the first instance.
Yep.
Because I was solely focused on just doing more hours, outworking everybody, that it wasn't about quality, it was quantity.
Quantity. Yeah.
And so when I started, and it was awkward for a while, as you know,
yeah.
but I started to then quieten that little fear of failure voice down
Beautiful.
and started to actually get some different wins.
Yep.
And they weren't wins that were externalized necessarily. They were just this little bit of something that changed internally.
Can you describe that?
The best way to describe it is the butterflies went away.
Yeah. Wow.
So I realized how much I was driven by adrenaline.
Yep.
So I was, it's interesting because I don't seek adrenaline in other parts of my life because I lived a life of adrenaline.
Yeah.
People go to the circus and or go to the show and hop on the big roller coasters. I never did that because my whole life was adrenaline based, self-fueled, So I started to see that shift, and I used to use the adrenaline as the fuel, but I started to feel that quieten down a lot more.
Yep.
And I actually started to discover this kind of guy on the other side of my shoulder who was actually speaking to me in a more kind of love-based way, and just saying, hey, do you actually realize that those 3 decisions you made today, you made quicker, more succinctly, and they were actually better decisions, whether it's personally or professionally. So I started to get a little bit of that, and then obviously once I started to get a taste for it, it was then like, oh, let's go hard at that, you know?
And so I think it's an important distinction there when you say I was running on adrenaline, that's where I was getting my adrenaline. That's actually in response to fear. Right?
Yeah.
So you talk about the fear of failure and being on that treadmill and the merry-go-round. I think a lot of people relate to that, and it's often heralded as a good thing. It's like, I'm go on the thing, on the, But if people stop and, like you said, listen to that voice and get kind of really sober with it, it's like, oh, this thing's actually really scared. This part of me is actually really frightened. And that's why I'm running.
Exactly.
Because I'm running away.
Exactly.
Like a frightened person.
Exactly. Exactly.
And there's no world where that ends well. Yeah. Which was obviously your experience. So starting to now listen to this other voice, which we would call like a love-based voice, which doesn't necessarily mean, unicorns and floating down the street and oh my God, everything's so loving. It's like, actually, I'm doing this because I like myself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make these choices because I want to be a person that, reaches their potential, but doesn't sacrifice the things that are going to matter to me, perhaps on my deathbed further down the track. So you start introducing things like nutrition, sleep, health, all that type of stuff. I'll never forget, I remember a session in the old office sitting there, and we did a bit of a visualization exercise, and you're connecting with this, in your words, this guy on the ranch.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and
Yeah.
what that brought up for you and what that gave access to?
Yeah, look, I think that guy on the ranch was interesting because the best way to describe it is I started to identify what alignment felt like.
Yes.
So for me, I started to realize that if I actually readjusted my thought process
Yes.
and did the sets and reps differently,
Yes.
I would actually, this level of alignment that I could have in kind of mind, body, and spirit
Yes.
would give me the opportunity to actually achieve more.
Yeah.
Funnily enough,
Yep.
if I look at where I am today compared to where I was,
Yeah.
I go, whoa, what the hell was that?
Yep.
Because you can actually achieve more, but you can actually achieve that level of kind of contentment.
Yes.
The ranch was very much a metaphor for what kind of life I wanted to live. I realized actually through connecting with self that I actually didn't want to be working 85 hours a week. I actually didn't want to be kind of on the treadmill. I didn't want to kind of be creating all this joy for others.
Yeah.
I wanted to create joy for others, but I could actually create joy for myself as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think super interestingly, like the cliche, like I can't pour from an empty cup.
yeah,
It's like when I have joy for myself and that's overflowing, that's actually when I'm going to bring the most to others,
exactly.
and that's actually when the people around me are going to get the very best of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that showed up in every facet of my life. I remember having a conversation with one of the guys at work. I would say I would have been 12 months into my inner work journey. And
Yeah.
I remember him saying to me, he said, "Mate, you're like a different person."
Yeah.
He said, "I always knew you were a nice person, but you never really gave me an opportunity to get to know you."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I still remember that to this day because I lived my life as a bit of a chameleon.
Yep.
Seek joy in other people, but I feel like in a professional sense I'm doing my best work. In a personal sense, my relationships are deeper and way more enriched.
Yep.
I'm without question a better father.
Yep.
And that's my greatest joy
Yeah.
and my greatest achievement. And I can see the goal setting and the movement towards something is even more exciting now, because it's like, oh well, I'm at this level of base camp, but I want to just keep going and going and going, and I can't quite see the top. And then that's so rewarding,
Yeah.
And I feel younger. I feel more energized than I've
Yeah.
ever felt.
You appear more energized.
Yeah.
I
Sleep will do that.
I think it's super interesting point to touch on, right? Because as a species, like if you give a human a ladder, they're going to climb it.
Yep.
Right. The issue is that most people aren't conscious about what they're climbing or where they're climbing to. Kind of like you said, when it's driven from that fear-based place, it's like never enough, or I get there and now I want something else, or this person has better. And so what you're saying is, you've reached base camp, but you still want to climb the next peak. That's cool. That's healthy. Yeah, that's normal. It's just that now you're doing it. What it sounds like is you're doing it from a place of consciousness and intention, and you're actually going to head toward that guy that's, deeply happy, deeply content, deeply satisfied in his life.
100%. Just the I reflected on some instances in a professional sense last week where one of my core values is the value of presence. And because I've lived for decades of my life never really being present.
Yep.
I realized that was something that was affecting my relationship with my children, any romantic relationship, any friendship, any professional relationship, every part of my life.
Yeah.
And I reflected in a professional sense last week. I was at one of our jobs, and some of the finishing is happening on a pretty amazing part of this project.
Yeah.
And I remember just having a moment on my own, just looking and actually genuinely feeling joy
Wow.
for the realization, rather than going, oh yeah, that's right, it's in accordance with what it needs to be and moving on. It was a completely different mindset. And I was able to kind of be really present in that moment.
Yeah.
And the joy, that presence is, as an example, is like the fuel that fills that hole that I had.
Beautiful.
And it is actually a physical, for me, it's actually a physical feeling now where I go, wow, I'm actually right in this moment, in the moment.
Mate, I love that. I mean, presence is one of my top 3 values as well, so I really relate, and I love that. And it's interesting because it really is a superpower in the sense that you can still do the same things in your day-to-day life, but if I bring that little bit of presence to it, it's like, oh, this moment is, you know, deeply inspiring or beautiful or fantastic. And you could be doing anything. Like you said, in the past, you might be walking through a project and just going, yep, that's good. Yep, done. Next, we've got, you know, 5 other things to get to today.
Exactly.
Whereas something arises from within, you know, like we obviously, you know, in the office, we've got the neon sign, happy and content every single day. And the happiness comes through externals.
Yes.
What I can see, touch, taste, hear, smell. Maybe it is a roller coaster. Maybe it is a sunset. Maybe it is, you know, whatever it is, something that I experience from the external world. And that's great. And that's important.
Yeah.
Achieving the goal, ticking the thing off. Contentment, though, arises from within.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're talking to.
100%.
It's like you said, it's a feeling because it is. It arises inside and it's like, oh, actually, this moment is enough.
Yeah.
And I am enough.
Exactly.
Within it.
I don't need any more here.
Yeah.
My cup is full.
Yes.
Right in this moment, my cup is full.
So good. And then that's when you're operating from that. The guy on this shoulder, which is the love-based place.
Yep.
Wow.
I remember earlier in the year, my daughter graduated college and I was in the US for her graduation.
Yeah.
Another thing I realized through this journey was I crave nature. I was, you know, New York is a pretty intense city.
Yeah, sure.
And I was not feeling present, you know, and I needed to kind of connect with self. And I found myself in the middle of Central Park and I got really deep into a spot where I couldn't see any buildings.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 hours.
Wow.
And it was just that.
Beautiful.
Because I needed that connection through to kind of fill the cup.
Yep.
And when you realize that you can actually, through a little bit of discipline, but it's not that hard.
Yes.
To be fair.
Yeah.
Once you do the sets and reps, you can actually get all of that from within.
Yes.
Oh, and how you can then show up for those that you really love and that you really care about.
Yep.
It's, as I say, it's remarkable.
So your mind would have said doing these things are going to probably slow you down and stop you from achieving, whether it be sleeping, you know, looking after yourself, putting yourself first. I think you're alluding to practices like meditation and mindfulness there. I know you've been doing that pretty hardcore, the same way you'd get up and train.
And I have a routine and a religious kind of process with that.
And so all these things that were taking from your time and your energy and your effort, has that slowed down your success?
Not at all. It's the opposite.
Okay.
Remarkably the opposite.
Okay.
It is quite remarkable. And you know, for me, it's something that I'm, as you know, with your help and support, I'm looking to kind of evangelize my entire workforce.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think this should be taught in schools.
Yeah.
This is respectfully, this is more important than learning about the First World War and the Second World War. Like, seriously.
Yeah. And
you know, as important as reading, writing and arithmetic. Like, this is the missing piece in society.
Yeah.
You know, and I've gone through many years where I've read the self-help books and I've never really bought into that whole journey because I feel like it's all task-based. Yeah. Whereas this is very, you know, our inner work journey is very different. It's so obtainable. Anyone and everyone can do it, and anyone and everyone should do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I agree. I agree. So your relationship's better?
Much better.
Yeah?
Yeah, much better.
You know, Charlie and yourself, your daughter, have a pretty special bond now.
Yeah. It's you'll make me choke up. It's an interesting thing because, you know, I as a father spent a big chunk of my early fathering parenting how I was parented and how I thought I needed to parent. So I needed to be the guy that, you know, made the money so she could go to the best private school. And I needed to be the guy that bought the ballet shoes and that, you know, and I took a second, probably took a backward step on actually allowing her to actually experience who her dad is.
Wow.
But interestingly, you know, there's probably a bit of truth in the fact that I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to show that
Of course.
if you don't really know yourself.
Yeah.
It was a big step when she decided to follow her dream, and she moved to America when she graduated grade 12, 17, turning 18.
Yep.
Which I'm in awe of my daughter. I'm so more than proud of what she's achieved, but more particularly the person that she is and the person she's becoming.
Wow.
And yeah, through that journey, it was quite interesting because I never got an opportunity to get her to get to know me.
Wow.
And we've been able to kind of have some really honest and frank dialogue.
Yep.
And I've been able to let her see me.
Wow.
And I've been able to see her. I think for the first chunk of her, I've got some very moments I'm ashamed of. I remember her being on the floor of my office, and I'd come home from work and I'd be on the mobile phone and I'd basically step over her to go to my desk, like horrible stuff. But I reflect back now and I'm able to take responsibility and I'm able to take accountability for that. And we're able to talk about it. And I think through those journeys, we were able to connect at a level that I could have only ever dreamt of. And I feel genuinely that she knows that she can rely on me. It's not just about what I can provide her anymore. I know that. The biggest part of our relationship is the connection that we have at a very spiritual, deep level.
You've got something really special, and that's why I kind of raised it. It's not like the average, provider dad that, which you've done and you've done incredibly well, and continue to, but the thing that's actually going to matter, the thing that's going to matter, like we talk about on your deathbed, is actually, wow, we're really deeply connected. She knows who I am.
Yep.
She sees who I am. I know you guys speak very regularly and connect on and stuff. So it's
and I thank you for that, mate. And Em and the journey that we've had together. It's interesting. My daughter, we always have a laugh. She said, when she was young, going through school, for me it was like, well, how much study have you done? When's the tutor coming? All of this stuff. Now she laughs. And the first time we FaceTime most days, and the first thing she says is, Dad, this is what I've done for me today.
How good.
So, now she'll say, oh, Dad, when she first started moving over there, she said, oh, Dad, I made the Dean's list. She did really well. And I said, sweetheart, that's great. But what have you done today for yourself? Like, have you been meditating? Are you journaling?
Wow.
Have you gone for a walk to try and center yourself? Oh, Dad, stop yogaing me, She said, who is this guy? But it's interesting through her, I only wish I knew then what I know now.
Wow.
But it's never too late.
Wow.
It's never too late.
And I think that's a really important message.
It's never too late.
Any men that might be listening, or fathers that might be listening, that, can relate to some of that stuff, that kind of providing at all costs or any cost, it is possible to have both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting with my son, he's very different than my daughter, and I hope he understands that I love him for him, and he gets a better version of me, and he's on his own path, and he's got his own individuality, and I'm so excited to see the journey he goes on in life.
Yeah.
And that journey is not one that I'm there to script, which is very different than how I was raised, and probably how the mindset that I had.
Yep.
Because it was a fear-based mindset.
Yep.
And an achievement-based mindset. Whereas I think achievement comes in all forms.
Absolutely.
And through that connection with self, the level of achievement far outweighs and far out succeeds the one that you're running hard to try and chase.
Yeah. Love it. What's life like now, in a few words or in a sentence?
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. What's amazing is I think a bit about, because I'm a goal-setting person and an achievement-orientated person, that doesn't change. But I'm so in connection with myself more now. And as you would know in some of our sessions, I sometimes I say, I can't unknow this stuff now.
Yeah.
Because there's still times when your thought process, often when you're fatigued, I find, if I'm fatigued and I'm not aligned, then things creep up on you, and all of a sudden the chatter starts, and you go, whoa, hang on, let's just stop here, and let's just take a step back, and you can't unknow what you now know. So for me, it's amazing, but it's also limitless. I feel
Wow.
extremely buoyant.
Wow.
You know, I feel extremely excited about the future. I'm setting different goals for the
Yep.
future. You know, setting goals around more self-based goals that ultimately will show and mean that I'm showing up better for those that really matter to me.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm excited about the next frontier.
So 2020 team was in the teens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're a few years down the track.
Yeah. 97. I lose a bit track. I think we're at 97.
90.
We'll probably be at 98 by Christmas. So
Okay.
yes.
And prior to inner work, the strategy was just work more, get up at 2 a.m,
Yeah.
work till 12 at night,
Yes.
miss sleep to kind of get through it.
Yep.
Clearly that's had to change. Yeah.
I had to change in every way, shape, and form.
Okay.
Change as a leader, change as a manager,
Yep.
change as a mentor, reorientate this notion of being someone that has all the answers into
Yeah,
being
wow.
someone that helps empower people to find the answers.
Amazing.
Because I think people know more, then you'd have the answers, because if you had the answers, then that was a sense of self-validation.
It just, even when you talk about it, I just sense that fear behind it. It's like I have to know
Oh,
everything. I have
totally.
to have all the answers. I have to be in charge of everything. I have to.
100%.
Okay. And so I imagine there's been a bit of a letting go in that and having to kind of face that. Look at his face.
Massive letting go.
Yeah.
Massive letting go. I mean, you know, I wake up every morning and I say, you know, who does this guy want to be today?
Yeah.
Who am I today?
Was that scary? Was that hard to do? Like, what was the stuff? I mean, we can sit here and say, yeah, look, my business has gone from 20 people to, 97, 98 staff. But what are the parts in that people wouldn't have seen? Like, what were the scary parts in that?
I think that you've got to allow yourself, to feel,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Yeah.
part of the outrunning of the fear is also outrunning the fear of the feeling.
Yep.
And that's something obviously that we do and get to connect with in the inner work.
Yep.
And so for me, the complete shift is, rather than outrun the fear becomes the strength.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that source of kind of like the North Star that you chase.
Yes.
So it's scary, but obviously if you're able to move through the feeling that you have,
Yep.
the achievement reorientates itself.
Yep.
And then you realize that you're actually looking and chasing and is experiencing different levels of success than you would have previously.
Beautiful.
The success doesn't really ever come previously
Yep.
because you're not really ever arriving anywhere.
Yep.
You're not really ever truly accomplishing.
Yep.
So yeah, it changes dramatically.
And so would it be fair to say now that you've achieved more success by kind of doing less?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, without question. Yeah, smarter, not harder.
And so what's the future look like for yourself and for the business? And
yeah, I mean, look, the sky's the limit. You know, we've got I think about 12 months into a 5-year business plan, which is about a $1.5 billion plan over 5 years.
wow.
We're on target after our first bit over 12 months, which is great
Wow.
in a tougher market. It's interesting because even in a business sense, the shift of culture
Yep.
in terms of what we as a business look for in our people,
Yep.
this level of emotional maturity and this
Yes.
people that are kind of wanting to connect back with self.
Yep.
I think's a really big game changer. So yeah, look, the sky's the limit. Very aggressive revenue targets, and none of that scares me
Wow.
because I'm not operating from a place of fear.
Wow.
It's operating from a genuine place of let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's
Love
go
and
for
passion.
it.
And this is what
exactly.
I
And know that mistakes aren't failures. Mistakes are opportunities and platforms to learn.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Mate, 3 questions for everyone that comes on the series.
Yep.
Question number 1, what do you want us to know about you?
That I'm extremely loyal.
Yes.
That I'm extremely passionate.
Yes.
The people that matter to me matter deeply.
Yep.
And that I believe wholeheartedly that what I do and who I am makes a difference.
Love that. And I can affirm they're all true. As someone who knows you pretty well, I can affirm they're all true. Number 2, what don't you want us to know about you?
Yeah, this is a great one.
I know.
It's an interesting one in business, isn't it? Because, we talk in our business about vulnerability.
Yep.
And we try to instill vulnerability in our people, and it's certainly something that's part of the evolution of business success is to truly be vulnerable. And that means that you can say the things that you often don't want to say. So for me, the thing I would not want people to know about me is probably that I still suffer a fair bit from procrastination.
Yeah,
So I'm a little bit of a procrastinator.
Yep.
So, and if I look at my entire life, you know, I would fill my days with doing the things,
Yep.
but not necessarily the things that matter.
Yep.
So for me, one of the things that I focus on and have focused on for some time now is I'm not procrastinated doing nothing. I'm procrastinating doing the things that really matter.
Wow.
So that's something that, not a lot of
Thank
people
you for
would
sharing
know.
that. Yeah, that's really vulnerable. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure listeners will too. Third question. What's something that you're currently working on in your own kind of inner work journey?
Oh, this is exciting. So for me, it's the further evolution of that guy.
Yeah. Wow.
So you know, through our journey together, for me, it's you know, I have a very clear vision in my head about the guy that I'm filling the shoes of, and so for me, it never changes. So the opportunity to continue to step into those shoes and use the things I've learned, the practices, the techniques, to continue to kind of show up for myself first and foremost, and fill those shoes.
Beautiful.
So that's the next evolution.
I love that.
Yeah.
It was a really big kind of shift for me in my life when I realized worrying what people think about me and who I need to be and how that's going to look and how that's going to show up. It was like a big penny drop moment was realizing, hang on a sec, like the only person whose opinion actually matters is that of my future self.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you're saying that guy, that's who we're referring to.
That's who we're referring to.
That future self who, you know, I trust, respect, you know, and just
I want to be proud of him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Amazing. I love that, mate. Last question. Anyone who's watching this and going, oh, wow, I can relate to a bit of this and, you know, probably know I need to do some work on myself. Yep. What would your advice be?
Instantly reach out, do it, run at it hard. You know, most people, change is not necessarily something that people embrace.
Yes.
But I can say that this, as I said, I wish I had the privilege of working with you and to have met you, you know, decades ago, because revolutionary. It's spiritually so rewarding, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, wow.
Because the connections, you know, are connections that we have, the connections that I've forged through your community.
Yes.
The quality and authenticity that sits in a world that I see being so much less authentic.
Yeah.
Really sits nicely for me.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, the message would be loud and clear for me. It would be pick up the phone, do what you need to do, go hard, just have a go.
Awesome.
It's amazing how quick, if you really surrender to the process, it's amazing how quick alignment comes. And it might feel a bit challenging, it might feel a bit awkward, but that happens in relationships. It happens if you change jobs. It happens if you move house, and you go to a different grocery store. We see it all day, every day.
Yes.
It's just that I think that this area of people's life has been taboo for so long.
Yes.
And it's the most important part, I think, of our existence, that core essence of self.
Yes.
And if you embark on that journey and you genuinely embrace that journey in a safe place, like the platform and the modality that you're able to provide people, I think it just, look, sky's the limit.
Thank you, Mr. Trent Keirnan.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Alrighty, here we go, Mr. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's lovely.
Come a bit closer.
Oh, that'll be cherished.
Okay.
TK.
TK.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.